businesses coming out of the pandemic. I'm joined today by Jimmy Dixon, a principal with Oliver Wight Americas. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Robert.
Thank you very much for taking the time with me today. So what are you seeing companies focusing on right now as we emerge, I hope, as we emerge from the pandemic, despite its continuing to linger?
Yeah, right now they're focused on continuing to solve supply chain related issues, be it labor acquisition and retention of employees, material and transportation related issues, in order to meet customer service expectations is a major focus.
Mm-hmm.
They're also dealing with pricing actions to cover inflationary cost of materials, transportation, et cetera. So that's the current world that we live in today, but it's not going to last forever.
Well, who knows how long it is going to last? It feels forever at this point, but I know that companies have to take very short-term solutions for the moment. One of the things that a lot of executives are obsessed with is speed. Of course, it's ironic given the fact that the supply chain is moving so slowly right now. But that, in addition to that, tell me what else is on the minds of executives in this environment. What's top of mind for them in terms of keeping their businesses going just in a survival mode right now?
Yeah, well, some things never change. And so even though we're going through a pandemic and these are different times, there's always a focus on making the numbers. And given the pandemic driven, complexities, they're working, beyond immediate supply chain constraints and positioning themselves for the post-pandemic environment. So that's kind of what's top of mind. Mm-hmm. Sharp choices to fuel profitable growth, with limited resources, where to place their bets given the constraints to fuel growth, which customers, which geographies, which markets and products. So good old segmentation analysis to make sharp choices is top of mind. So strategy is taking a forefront. So even though we've been focused on short term, coming out of this, a lot of executives are starting to focus on strategy and what it's going to mean to them. So we see executives beginning to focus on integrating strategy, operationalizing their plans, and the supporting strategic initiatives, investments, productivity, all the levers you might imagine to help them achieve, their strategy. So that's where we're starting to see the shift in focus.
When you say integrating strategy, that would strike me as something that they had probably been aiming to do all along, long before the pandemic. I mean, are you suggesting or implying that strategy was in some way segmented or fragmented from execution before this happened, and only now has it started to be rolled in a more, as you say, integrated way? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Great question. I think if we follow the evolution of sales and operations planning to integrated business planning to the next evolution that we're calling integrated strategy management, let me explain a little bit about what that is. So okay. S&OP, core and foundational, a best practice every company needs to have in place to integrate those core set of plans to help them achieve their mid to long-term goals and put that in place. So this evolution to ISM, or integrated strategy management, will include much more attention on corporate strategy, business unit strategy, and then the functional strategies that then drive tactics and plans to help them achieve their strategy. So in the past, there's been this focus on the typical 3-day offsite. We go off with the leadership team, we develop a strategy, it sits on a binder, we come out and we communicate it a little bit. At the end of the year, we check to see how we did. That's no longer going to be acceptable. And I think a lot of executives, know that. So they're seamlessly tying strategy, planning, execution together. So it's not a disconnected kind of handoff, rather an all hands-on integration of strategy, plans, insights, and actions approach.
I wonder if it has something to do with the narrowing of the time gap between planning and execution. As you say, standard S&OP processes are very much a part of any good organization up to now, but the window of planning and the way that things change so quickly requires a planning almost to become so short term that it's hard to even distinguish that from execution. Are you seeing a narrowing of that time gap? And is that also a function of why strategy is becoming more integrated with planning and with execution in the organization.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there, and that's what we're seeing. We talk to a lot of executives, and we talk about extending their planning horizon and talking about the future, and being ready for what's going to come. Many companies and executives that we talk to have been caught in the trap of a budget year planning mindset for their future strategy. And so, what do I mean by that? I mean, so as we talk about, we do our strategy and we put it in a binder, but when it comes time to set the budget for the next year, what do? We look at, how much did we invest last year? Where did we place our bets? And in a similar fashion, that's what we do moving forward for the future. So if you're going to stand a chance to achieve your strategy, then you're going to have to make sharp choices that are guided by these future strategic, decisions. So you're going to have to know where to place your bets and your investments. And that's going to be required to plan for strategy and execute it well. So it can no longer be this singular annual event to achieve the strategy. It's got to be operationalized and integrated. And by that, I mean the typical volume and value. I want to see capacity. I want to see the impact on resources across the horizon. What are the investments that I need to grow the strategy, all in a singular model, so that I then have this chessboard that I can use to ensure my assumptions are correct. And as the environment changes, I can quickly right-size my strategy and change if required.
No, there's the key, because it seems to me, do you believe that integrated strategy management, with its ability to replan and re-strategize in line with changing conditions, actually results in more agility, which is the true capability that companies need in a changing environment?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, change is going to be constant. We're going through a pandemic right now, and we're seeing changes associated with that. But as we come out of the pandemic, there's going to be more change to deal with, different, product life cycles, different dynamics that we have to deal with. So the constant's going to be change, and we have to have a process that allows us to manage through this change. And the really good companies and executives we're talking with, they get that, they understand that. And what executive doesn't want to know that they have a good laid out plan with investments and choices, and it's well thought through in terms of allowing them to achieve and hit their strategy.
To the extent we can put a silver lining around this cloud, and I hesitate to do so because it's been such a terrible disaster and such terrible social costs as a result of this pandemic. And yet I do hear you saying that we're going to come out of this with companies and supply chains way stronger and way better run than they ever were before. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do believe that. And that's what we're seeing as we're working with many clients right now, so that they get it in the short term. They're focusing resources on the short term to make things happen, but they're anticipating what's going to come in the future, and they're planning accordingly to be ready for that.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, sometimes it takes a crisis, right, Jimmy? So, yeah, thanks very much for those insights into what companies are doing. And it's gratifying to hear that they are looking beyond mere moment by moment survival mode into some longer term strategizing for improving their operations. At this point, however, I want to turn to talking a little bit about Oliver Wight itself. Of course, you are a venerable organization. You've helped companies for so many decades and get through crisis after crisis. How are you helping clients today in this environment? What are you doing?
When this is my second go around with Oliver Wight, and my last role was a chief operating officer in one of the newer businesses. And so I brought back some insights when I came back to Oliver Wight. So there's a couple things that I think we need to be, focused on, that we're driving. One was this integration of strategy. I watched so many different businesses say they had a strategy, but it was not truly, integrated in driving that in place. And then the second part was executives, in spite of all the ERP systems that we have in place and all the data and the analytics and the promise of business intelligence, struggling to get that core information to make good business choices and decisions. So we've been turning that into, how do we make this process not, so labor burdensome? We've really focused on, a suite of products and services to stand up the process, really quickly, integrate strategy, and then use some good BI tools like Power BI to create dashboards so that an executive can see their strategy long term. They can see what's happening short term. They can do all their analytics and insights, and the information's right there at the tip of the fingers. So we're helping executives right now implement this ISM type of playbook, if you will, that's incorporating all the best practices that we've learned over the years in working with Fortune 500 clients and helping clients get up to speed and close that gap, very quickly.
How do you make sure that your clients, and for that matter, you folks in advising your clients, are achieving the proper balance between access to this cutting edge, exciting technology and business process change that has to go along with it? Those two things really have to go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, of course, you're right. And if you know a lot about our methodology, it's central around, first education, understanding concepts that we put in place. And that levels the playing field. We get everybody on the same page, as we're doing that with terminology and concepts, et cetera. And then we help them design their processes. And this structured type of learning that I'm talking about, we put in place is we've embedded all the the concepts of best practices, and we come in after education and we help the client design in these solutions into their operations. And there's always a part of change management because there's the behaviors that are associated with that. Lots of times we find functional silos built right within the organization, and they know the competition's on the outside. But that being said, they're still there. So we help them work through the right behaviors, the principles that are required to integrate information and get to the right answers to help them solve their problems. So it's truly an integrated, approach from theory to process to, the products and solutions to help them solve their problems.
Jimmy Dixon of Oliver Wight Americas. Once again, I want to thank you so much for helping us to understand how companies are dealing with the pandemic as they come out of it, long-term strategizing for success afterwards, as well as telling us a little bit about how Oliver Wight is doing these days in working with its clients. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Robert, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.